Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we continue following the story of Ly Hoai Ca, a girl who seemed to have finally found peace after so many storms, but fate, as always, loves to test her. In the previous episode, everything started with a few small signs. Hoai Ca felt exhausted, dizzy, nauseous, and her period was late for many days. Hùng, tough on the outside, but soft at heart, was so worried he wouldn't even let her walk on her own. Even in the pouring rain, he still took her to the local clinic, soaked from his shoulders to his hair. At home, Tony, the 2-year-old boy who is learning to speak, stayed with Anha. He hugged his stuffed toy tightly, waiting for his parents to return, his round eyes full of innocent confusion. At the ultrasound room, that moment felt like the whole world stopped. On the blurry screen, a tiny dot was beating steadily, clearly, as if calling out to its parents through its own heartbeat. You're more than 6 weeks pregnant. The baby's heartbeat is strong. Just that one sentence made both Hùng and Hoai Ca burst into tears. Hùng held his wife's hand tightly, while Hoai Ca trembled, half afraid, half overjoyed, scared that if she closed her eyes, this happiness might disappear. But life is never that simple. Before the joy could fully settle in, the challenge arrived. Right after they stepped out of the ultrasound room, Hung's biological mother suddenly appeared. The woman who had nearly caused Hoai Ca's death years ago, the woman she thought she would never see again, stood there, with eyes full of regret. She begged to meet them, to talk, to be given one chance to make amends. But Hoai Ca panicked, stepping back and clutching Hung's shirt tightly. Her breathing became shallow, tears falling uncontrollably. At that moment, Hùng was no longer her son. He was a man protecting his wife and the child in her womb. "Mom, please go home. Let my wife and child have peace." His voice was cold as stone. His mother stood there, shaken and heartbroken, unable to take another step forward. And that was where the previous episode ended. Between joy and fear, between love and unresolved pain, in the middle of a confrontation not yet finished. So what happens next? Will Hùng choose his family or his duty as a son? Can Hoai Ca overcome her old trauma while carrying a fragile new life? Will Hung's mother truly stop, or is she planning something more? Watch today's video to see how the story continues. Sit back, turn up the volume, because the drama is hitting its peak right now. That evening, the sky suddenly burst into heavy rain. The rain crashed down onto the tin roof with a deafening roar, while icy gusts of wind slammed against the windows, making them tremble violently. In the living room, Anha held Tony tightly in her arms, his tiny body jerking every time thunder rumbled. Tony could only babble a few weak sounds, He couldn't speak yet, couldn't express his fear, so he buried his face into Aunt Ha's chest, his little hands clutching her clothes as if that was the safest place in the world. Inside the bedroom, Hoai Ca clutched her stomach, her face pale and drained of color. The sudden wave of pain made cold sweat break out on her skin, her breathing uneven and shallow. When Hùng rushed in and saw her like that, his heart nearly stopped. He quickly supported her, helped her sit up, then lifted her onto the bed. "Ca, where does it hurt? Is it bad?" His voice was clearly shaking. Hoai Ca gripped his hand tightly, her breathing growing weaker by the second. "Hùng, it hurts so much. Take me to the hospital. Hurry." The moment he heard the words hospital, Hung's face changed completely. He spun toward the door and shouted, "Mom, please hold Tony for me. I'm taking Ca to the hospital now." Aunt Ha hugged Tony even tighter, nodding urgently. "Go. I'll take care of the boy. Focus on Ca." Hearing his mother's voice, Tony reached out toward Hoai Ca, his tiny mouth twitching before he burst into tears. His eyes turned red, tears streaming down his cheeks, little arms flailing as he searched for his mother, not understanding what was happening. Despite the pain draining the color from her lips, Hoai Ca still forced herself to stroke his head. "Tony, be good. Mommy will be right back. Stay with Grandma, huh, okay?" The boy sobbed, sniffles breaking his breath, tears rolling down nonstop. The scent of his soft hair, the warmth of his tiny hands made Hoai Ca's heart ache even more. Aunt Ha quickly took Tony into her arms, pressing him to her chest and gently patting his back. "Stay here with Grandma. I'll comfort you. Your parents have to go now." Hung didn't waste a single second. He scooped Hoai Ca into his arms, holding her tightly to his chest, then ran straight outside. The rain lashed against him like icy needles. The wind howled so violently he had to brace every step just to stay on his feet. Hoai Ca let out a faint groan, her fingers digging into his shoulder. Hung lowered his head to shield her, running through the storm as if the most precious thing in his entire life was in his arms. The car had just rushed down the steep slope. The tires hadn't even fully touched the flat road when Hung slammed on the brakes so hard that the whole vehicle jerked violently forward. A sharp screech pierced the air, cutting through the sound of the rain pounding onto the road like thousands of needles striking relentlessly. Hoai Ca was jolted forward, grabbing the handle tightly to steady herself. Her fingers turned pale from the force, her breathing instantly thrown into chaos by the sudden shock. Right in front of the car, through the blinding curtain of rain that looked like thick mist, a figure stood still, unmoving. The wind whipped fiercely, throwing the person's clothing to one side, plastered against a thin, frail body. A crooked silhouette in the middle of the muddy road, chilling to the bone. The headlights shone directly onto that face, a face Hoai Ca never wanted to see again. Pale and drained, eyes sunken from sleepless nights, wrinkled skin soaked through, and streams of water, whether rain or tears, no one could tell, running down the chin. It was Hung's mother, the greatest nightmare of Hoai Ca's life. The grandmother of the child in her womb, but also the very person who once almost cost her life. The moment she saw her, Hoai Ca trembled instinctively. Her whole body curled in as if someone had dumped icy water down her back. Her face turned ghostly white, lips drained of color, eyes wide in sheer panic. Her fingers dug into the seat so hard that blue veins stood out. "Hung, don't." Her voice shattered, broken into fragments. "Don't let her come near. I'm scared. I'm so scared." Old memories surged back without warning. The sound of a turning lock, frantic footsteps, suffocated breaths, darkness closing in. Each fragment stabbed into her chest like a blade, tightening the pain in her abdomen with every wave. Outside, Hung's mother took small steps toward the car. Each step struggled to find grip on the slippery road, her trembling legs making her stagger. Rain beat down on her face, hair sticking painfully to her forehead. Her weak voice rose, drowned in the storm. "My child. Ca, let me come. I heard she's pregnant. I'm worried." Her words broke off, choked before they could fully form, swallowed by the rain. Hung clenched the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles stood out. Then he threw the car door open, the bang echoing over the storm. He stepped out and stood firmly in front of the car, his body drenched but solid like a living wall. "Stay back." His shout tore through the downpour. "The closer you get, the more terrified my wife becomes." His mother froze instantly, as if struck by lightning. Rain poured down her face, every drop bitter like unspoken guilt, pain, and regret she could no longer voice. Inside the car, Hoai Ca clutched her stomach, her body folding in on itself from the pain. Her breathing came in broken gasps, eyes blurred by tears and overwhelming fear. "Hun, I can't bear it anymore," she sobbed. Don't let her come closer, please." Hearing his wife's voice, a cold flash passed through Hung's eyes. He turned, staring straight at his mother. In that moment, his gaze was no longer that of a son, but of a man shielding the lives of his wife and unborn child. His voice was low, but sharp as a blade. "You once almost killed my wife. Now she's pregnant. I forbid you from coming near her." Those words struck like a brutal slash. His mother's shoulders slumped, her trembling hands lifting slightly before falling helplessly back down. I regret everything." Her voice choked, as if squeezed by an invisible hand. "I just want to see her, just once." "No." Hung's voice rang out violently, cutting through the rain with absolute finality. He slammed the car door shut, started the engine, and stepped hard on the gas. The car sped away, tires slicing through the wet road, leaving behind 2 long white trails of water. Behind them, Hung's mother stood frozen in the middle of the road. A small, pitiful figure swallowed by the heavy rain, hair disheveled, clothes clinging to her thin frame. No one heard her sobs. Only the storm, roaring mercilessly, engulfing the silhouette of a woman trembling in regret and helplessness. Hoai Ca was lifted out of the car as nurses rushed over, immediately helping her onto a stretcher. She clung to Hung's hand for a few brief seconds, her eyes filled with pure terror, like someone about to fall into a deep abyss, before being pushed straight into the emergency room. The door slammed shut. The cold metallic click echoed like a blade slicing straight through his heart. Hung stood frozen in the corridor, his entire body drenched from the rain and from icy sweat. His hands trembled uncontrollably. Water dripped from his hair onto the floor, mixing with the mud on his shoes, yet he had no strength left to even glance downward. His chest rose and fell rapidly, breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps like someone who had just sprinted for his life. Back at home, Aunt Ha walked back and forth with Tony in her arms. The little boy cried until his face turned crimson, tears and mucus smeared across his cheeks, his mouth repeatedly forming the shaky sound. "M.O. A broken, innocent attempt to say Mom. Aunt Ha patted his back until her voice grew hoarse. "Tony, be good. Mommy will come back to you. Grandma's here." But Tony only cried harder, his tiny hands stretching helplessly toward the door, as if he wanted to run out and find his mother no matter what. At the hospital, every minute felt like an hour. Rain battered the windows, wind howled outside, the sharp scent of disinfectant filled the air. Hung paced a few steps, then stopped, then paced again like a restless shadow with no soul. 20 minutes passed, but to him it felt like an entire night. Finally, the emergency room doors opened. A doctor stepped out, his expression unmistakably serious. "Who is the patient's family?" Hung almost lunged forward, his voice hoarse and strained. I'm her husband. How is my wife?" The doctor looked at him, exhaling slowly. "Your wife has experienced a very severe psychological shock. Extreme stress, fear, and repeated trauma are directly affecting the pregnancy." The words struck like a spear through Hung's chest. He stood rigid, his hands clenching so tightly his knuckles turned white. The doctor continued, his tone unwavering. "If this situation happens again, the risk of miscarriage will be extremely high." Hung felt as if someone was crushing his heart without mercy. His legs weakened, but he forced himself to remain standing, lips trembling, barely able to form a breath. The doctor added carefully, each word deliberate. "Especially, she shows a very strong psychological reaction to the woman who caused her trauma in the past. The family must absolutely avoid letting them meet again." Hung closed his eyes. His entire body sagged as if the last support had been torn away. He knew exactly who the doctor meant. There was no need to ask. No need to guess. It was his own mother, the woman who gave birth to him. Yet also the name that made his wife tremble, cry, and spiral into panic just by seeing her, to the point of endangering the child growing inside her. In the sterile, freezing white hallway, Hùng stood there, like a man who had just had the most vital part of his heart ripped away. She was still huddled in a corner of the corridor, a shadowed spot between two wings of rooms, where the dim yellow light could not fully reach her face, only illuminating a small trembling patch at her feet. Her clothes were soaked through, water dripping steadily from the hem, each drop falling in a slow, rhythmic pattern, like a countdown ticking away. The water flowed across the cold tiled floor, forming a long, dark trail, icy and bleak, just like the fear tightening inside her chest. Her shoulders shook in short, uneven tremors, not the normal kind of shivering, but the kind born from standing too long in the cold, too long in regret, too long in the helpless realization of everything slipping beyond her control. Her wet hair clung to her forehead, each strand sticking together, making her already gaunt face look even more worn and broken. Every few seconds, she lifted her hand to wipe her face, but the rain had long since soaked through her skin. Her trembling fingers sometimes missed her cheek entirely, swiping at empty air before falling limply back down. When she saw Hùng appear at the end of the corridor, his movements tense and hurried, she immediately stepped forward. Her feet staggered like someone who had just survived a long, exhausting night, her body tilting forward, barely managing to keep its balance. Her voice choked. "Son, how is CA? I just wanted." But before she could finish, Hùng raised his hand, sharp, decisive, and icy cold, like an invisible steel wall erected between them. She froze instantly. Her feet felt glued to the floor, unable to move even half a step. Water still dripped from her clothes, tap, tap, echoing so clearly it sent chills through the air, as if each drop fell straight onto a heart. Hung's voice cut through the space, cold enough to freeze the hallway itself. "From now on, stay away from my wife. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever." The air seemed to split apart. There was no longer any blurred line between pity and forgiveness. This was a boundary, absolute and final. Her lips parted, but they trembled so violently that no sound came out. Her throat tightened, every breath heavier and more jagged than the last, until the words finally escaped as a broken whisper. "So, you're cutting your own mother off." Each word crumbled in the air. Her eyes reddened, tears gathering at the rims, ready to fall with the slightest blink. Yet she still looked at him, searching desperately for even the faintest trace of mercy. But in Hung's gaze, there was no hesitation left. It was no longer the eyes of the little boy who had once slept in his mother's arms. No longer the man who had once begged to choose his own path. This was a stare hardened by responsibility, protective, unyielding, the gaze of a man with a family to safeguard. And if the danger happened to be his own mother, he would still cut it away. He spoke slowly now, every word landing like stone on her chest. "If the choice is between you and my wife and our child." He paused. Just 1 second, but it felt like an eternity, pulling her heart toward the edge of a cliff. Then came the sentence that made the entire corridor tilt. "I choose my wife." At those words, her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the icy floor, hands bracing against the wet tiles as rainwater streamed down her arms, mixing with her tears. No one spoke again. The corridor fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the muffled sobs she tried to swallow and the steady drip, tap, tap, from her clothes onto the tiles. Hùng turned away immediately. He did not look back. He did not hesitate. He left no room for her to say another word. He pushed open the hospital door and stepped inside, to where Hoai Ca lay, to where the child in her womb needed him most. Behind him, a mother remained collapsed on the cold floor, swallowed by regret and the unbearable pain of losing her own son, not to death, but to a choice she no longer had the power to change. In the freezing hospital corridor, with the sound of rain still pounding against the windows, one woman lies inside the emergency room, desperately trying to protect the fragile life growing inside her, while another mother collapses outside, realizing she has lost the most important thing in her entire life. And Hùng, standing on the thin line between filial duty and true devotion, is forced to choose to protect the woman he loves and the child who has not yet even taken shape. But this is only the beginning. Will the wounds inside Hoai Ca's heart ever heal? What will Hùng mother do next after being firmly forbidden by her own son? And is the baby's condition truly safe? Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover what happens next. Don't forget to leave a comment and share your feelings with us. See you all in the next video. This story is far from over, and the drama is just getting started.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến video tiếp theo về câu chuyện của Ly Hoai Ca và cảnh sát Hùng nha mọi người. Ở tập trước thì mọi người cũng đã biết là Hoài Ca đang mang thai. Trong tập này thì mình sẽ làm rõ hơn là khi mà mang thai thì người phụ nữ thường rất là nhạy cảm và mình đang tiếp tục chỉnh sửa. Mình vẫn chưa có edit xong á mọi người, mình vẫn đang cố gắng để hoàn thành sớm nhất có thể. Mọi người hãy đón xem các video tiếp theo ở trên kênh của mình mọi người nhé. Chào tạm biệt mọi người và hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo.